Cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am, said by French philosopher René Descartes, has been one of the most interesting philosophical quotes in human history. The interpretations of this quote have been vast. My interpretation is quite simple though. I am what I think I am. And there is no character that embodies this idea more than Adrian Gecko from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Now, it is not a secret that most people absolutely despise Adrian Gecko in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. He's insane, narcissistic, completely ignorant of his own flaws, seeing himself as a completely pure being, and that is what is amazing about him. Most people don't realize that you're supposed to hate Adrian Gecko, and that is why I think he is the perfect villain for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
He's falling to the darkness.
Now, why is that? First, let's go into his backstory and explain a bit about his mentality. Adrian Gecko was the adopted son of the Gecko family. He was abandoned by his original family in the middle of a wasteland and stared at the clouds for days, awaiting death to take him as he thought he had nothing left to live for. Eventually, though, by happen chance, he was found and he was made heir of the Gecko family until his adopted parents had a son. Adrian grew incredibly jealous of his younger brother for taking the heir from him and contemplated killing him, but instead chose to work diligently for his sibling's sake. Adrian Gecko, to me though, after seeing everything that he does throughout the story, follows most of the criteria for antisocial personality disorder. Some of the criteria for this includes disregard for right and wrong, persistent lying or deceit to exploit others, being callous, cynical, and disrespectful to others, using charm or wit to manipulate others for personal gain or pleasure, arrogance, a sense of superiority, and being extremely opinionated, poor or abusive relationships, failure to consider the negative consequences of behavior or learn from them, and most importantly, lack of empathy for others and lack of remorse about harming others. Now, to this one, you may relate to Adrian's last words when being defeated by Yubel in Jesse's body. He says, "I'm sorry." And, well, you may say, well, that right there shows he has guilt. He's just an asshole that I hate. But is he really? Something you have to know about sociopaths is that oftentimes it isn't just them being disconnected from their emotions. People with APD may very well feel bad about doing something they think is wrong, but that does not mean they will feel guilty about it. At least in my opinion, when Adrian Gecko says "I'm sorry," it's nothing about Gecko. It's about using her up too soon and failing to complete his goal. That is what I think Adrian Gecko's intention was in his last words. To me, Adrian Gecko is a very Littlefinger-esque character if you've watched A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones, quietly gaining power when he can and pushing people in certain directions for his own gain. So, with that being said, why I think that Adrian Gecko would have been the perfect villain to return in Season 4, for example, was what his ultimate goal was. That is, Adrian wanted to make a world devoid of darkness. Now, what is Jaden? Jaden is the Supreme King of Darkness. But it's also prevalent to mention that Adrian Gecko still had the dual spirit of Exodia the Forbidden One, which according to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is one of, if not the strongest dual spirit of all. They could have easily incorporated that as an antagonist, sort of like the antithesis to Yubel and Jaden in Season 4 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. With that being said, I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a problem with the sorting algorithm of evil, where the first villain in a given story cannot compare to the last villain in the story. For example, comparing Pegasus to Bakura. They're just incomparable in power scaling. So, with that being said, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! GX's final season being more grounded and having these real-world problems with Jaden dealing with depression, struggling to move on to adulthood, along with the other characters, so you have on one side with Jaden, someone who wants to move forward past his problems and, become an adult, with someone who's wallowing in the past that refuses to move forward. And that would have been such a fascinating plot thread through the last season. I had some problems with Season 4 in general, so having Adrian Gecko return as the final antagonist of the series, someone who does not want to move on, does not want to grow up, just wants to wallow in his own psychopathy, would be the perfect antagonist for Jaden. As I've said before, Cogito ergo sum means I am what I think I am. Adrian thinks he's a king, and as far as he's concerned, he is. So to have the False King and Adrian Gecko versus the Supreme King would have been the perfect way to end Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and why I think Adrian Gecko is one of the most underrated characters in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, but also one of the best villains. That's my video on Adrian Gecko. If you guys have any comments or anything you want to say in rebuttal to that, I would love to hear it. If you guys want to argue my position and explain why Nightshroud you think is the best villain for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, please tell me. I would actually really like to hear different positions on this. This is just a very off-the-cuff video, but it's something that I've been reading enough on Twitter and people dislike Adrian Gecko, and I think I just wanted to explain why I think people just don't get him as a character. What he could have very well been if the story went a different direction. Otherwise, I'm Jared Just Scored. I love each and every one of you guys, and thank you guys for watching. Bye.